Hello, everybody. As many times as I do this, I couldn't find my little intro button there. It's in the same place. Maybe I should be wearing my glasses and wouldn't have that power. But anyway, welcome to my live tonight. Gonna give folks a couple of seconds to hop on and be sure that all of my feeds are going well. So if you're joining me tonight, you know that I'm talking about 8 reasons that women get sidetracked on their way to the C suite, right? So I'm standing up again this week, so I'll probably be moving around a little bit. It's okay. I got a new camera. It should be able to follow me wherever I go without getting that blur that usually happened with my other camera, right? So if this is your first time joining me, I am Dr. Twanna Carter. And as a career coach, I work with stressed, busy women executives who are plagued by imposter syndrome, self criticism, and doubt to help them alleviate their stress and that doubt so that they can relax, right? And fully focus on the careers and the lives that they built. And again, tonight I'm talking about the 8 reasons women get sidetracked on their way to the C suite. And if you are on and you can hear me, drop a number 1 in the comments for me because yeah, I have a time or two been all the way off in the live without sound. It happens. It does from time to time. And if you could hear me, those of you on Facebook, welcome. For those of you that are seeing this on LinkedIn, you are welcome as well. Those of you who are catching this on YouTube and Twitter, as well as those of you who are catching this on the replay, thank you as well. Be sure to drop your questions, comments, suggestions in the comments. I'll read those tonight, and some of those I'll show. As well, I always circle back to look at the comments and questions that I have so that I can follow up with people. So I want to zoom down and be sure I'm live on Facebook. And I should be, let's see. There we go. There we go. Yes. All right. So we are all systems a go. So let me ask you this question. Ladies, did you know that your chances of reaching the C suite, if you don't do it within the first decade of your career, drops off significantly? Yeah. If you knew that, drop yes in the comments for me. If you knew that if you as a woman, if you don't make the C-suite in the first 10 years of your career, your chances of getting there drop off significantly. Yeah. So again, I know there's a little delay there, but drop yes in the comments. And those of you watching it on the replay, you can drop yes in the comments as well, right? So absolutely, it becomes paramount. It becomes really paramount that you understand what are the right steps that you need to take and the right time you need to take those steps and at the right place. And also, it's imperative for you to know who's on your team and to make sure you have the right people on your team. All of that's going to be crucial for success because you got 10 years. 10 years when it's a little bit easier. I won't say it's easy to make it. We're not going to say that. But yeah, it gets significantly harder after those 10 years, right? So it's also important that you don't let your career get derailed by negative thoughts, imposter syndrome, doubt, criticism, fear. You don't have time, right? We really don't have time. You have to get in there, you have to go for the gusto, right? And then there's, if you're like me, you got to do that ethically and with integrity too. So that kind of adds a little bit on it, but it just means you got to work. You got to be about your business, knowing where you're going and when you get there. Okay. So let's jump right in with the 8 reasons women get sidetracked on their way to the C suite. Okay. So, number 1 is a biggie. Probably heard me talk about it before, and that is lack of sponsorship. Okay. So, the Harvard Business Review says that sponsorship is a kind of helping relationship in which a senior person with more power and authority, and they're using their personal clout, some people like to call it political capital, to talk up a less, a junior employee, to advocate for them to get in certain jobs in certain places, right? And in the key roles that they know is going to land them in the C-suite. That's what a sponsor does for you. All right. It's different from a mentor. We'll talk about mentors in a couple of minutes. But women lack sponsorship, and especially women of color and Black women. Yes, they lack sponsorship. So if you lack sponsorship, that road to get to the C suite gets a lot more difficult, right? It gets a lot more difficult. And when it does, not that you can't get there, but it's going to be mighty difficult to do that. So, starting out, if you know you want to be in the C suite, one of your intentions, or if you set goals, one of your goals has to be always be looking out for a sponsor, someone who's going to sponsor you and put you up right in the right place. Here's why it's so important. I've sat in some rooms, and when names were mentioned, um, there was less than stellar support. Let's just say it like that. And there was, and though the person didn't say, I would never hire this person, they may as well have said it. By the lack of support, yes, this person will be great for that position. It was the look, sometimes it's the, and then the silence. It was communicated at that point, and the person wasn't even in there, the meeting. It was communicated at that point that person did not have the support. That's how important sponsorship is, because there are a lot of rooms that you don't sit in. So you need someone in that room who's advocating your and supporting you for the roles that's going to get you to the C-suite. So that's number one. Number two, I want to check my comments over here. I have to check in a couple of different places because for whatever reason, StreamYard doesn't show me all my comments. So if you have comments, do go ahead and drop them, and I will circle through to be sure that I am indeed catching them. Okay. So number two reason that stops women, that kind of get some sidetracked from getting to the C-suite is that forced choice between, ooh, I gotta support my family and raise my kids, or I can have a career. Many women say that they feel like they're forced to choose between family and career. Okay, that's they're not socialized that way. That's they're not. They're just not. Okay, I still hear comments, and some of these comments from other women. I still hear comments of, well, maybe if she was at home raising her kids, right? But we don't say that about dad. We don't. And so therefore, and when we talk about mid-career women, we're talking about women in their 30s and 40s. And so they're still of childbearing age, and they're still having kids or planning on having kids or already have them. And so when you're forced to choose one or the other, it gives you a little sick feeling inside. And so women may take a step back and say, maybe this isn't the right time to do this. So that step back, though, puts them behind, because remember, you only got 10 years. If you don't make the C-suite in the first 10 years, your chances of getting to the C-suite drop significantly. And so when you feel like you're in a position where you're forced to choose your family or your career, and you choose your family, you take that step back, push you a little bit further behind. Right? Right? And guys don't have to worry about that. They don't get that. Right? So anybody here know of someone who actually took that step back because she felt like she had to choose to take that career over, I'm sorry, her family over her career? Let me know in the comments if you know someone that's like that, right? It's almost a forced choice, and it's kind of a socialization thing, and it's kind of how we still look at women, and we give these rude, condescending, ugly comments about women who are trying to make their career work with having a family and everything else, and getting that fulfillment from their career. Right? So that was number two. Number three is living in survival brain. So what do I mean by that? When you start to doubt yourself, doubt starts to build anxiety and self-criticism and imposter syndrome, and you stop thinking with the smart brain, when you go over to survival brain, right, you don't make the best decisions. When you're living in survival brain, you're only worried about surviving. You're not worried about thriving. And again, we don't make the best decisions in survival brain. Now, some of you also may know this is autopilot. You're just on autopilot. You're cruising through, everything is the same. So you're not paying attention. You're not looking at your sponsorship. You're not attending to a whole lot of things that go into that career. So you want to be able to step out of survival brain and back into smart brain. I always tell my clients I do this because it's your neocortex, right? This is where you make your decisions, your logical decisions. Actually, you make decisions with emotions, but the logical piece of it resides here in your smart brain or your neocortex, right? Number four is the biases in the system itself. Okay. Example. Kevin comes in and says, he comes in and announces, hey, we're expecting, my wife and I are expecting, and in 6 months, gonna be a dad. No one goes, well, let's just write him off of that promotion. He's probably not gonna be serious about his career anymore. He's got a kid. The motherhood penalty is a bias that's built into the system. It is a bias because people will look at a woman who's having a baby or just had one and go, "Oh no, she's not really now. She's not really serious now." Sometimes I actually say it. Yes, people actually the words roll out of their mouth and they say that, and sometimes by their actions they say it as well. It's the motherhood penalty. It's a bias that's set in the system, and then also there is the fact that there are more males as CEOs, right? And human fact, nature, is this thing. We tend to choose the people who look the most like us. So the reason why it's still more people in C suite are men is because most of them are men, and they're going to have that attunement with more men. That's why D&I is so important, because sometimes we have these unconscious biases, and sometimes they're conscious. Obviously, there are some people they make it conscious. They consciously want the man or the woman. It was I remember being in the military, and these just irk me because the guy with blonde hair and blue eyes. It's like he's a leader. He's so good. He's so this. Watch him how far he's going to be general one day. And then you can take a female officer, same rank, by the same amount of experience, with blonde hair and blue eyes, and there were always little catty comments about she probably isn't really that smart, and her career will probably go nowhere. Those are some of the biases that are hidden in the system itself, right? I know that sometimes we want to tell women that you hear the about the research. Women are not confident as men when they go for interviews and whatnot, and kind of say, well, that's a woman problem. Biases in the system is not a woman's issue. That's a systems issue. So we can't lay everything at a woman's feet. Some of that is into the system. The motherhood penalty, that's a system issue. The fact that there are more males in the C-suite who will be hiring more males after them if they don't, do something to break the mold and look at that D&I. That's a systems issue that can derail women on their way to the C-suite, right? So we are now halfway through, and I just want to check for comments. Gonna zoom by and check. I think that on sometimes on Facebook, my comments didn't show up, okay. But I think we are good. I'm gonna be sure that that is. Check LinkedIn now. Yep, we are indeed good. Okay, so we're on number 5 of the reasons why, of the 8 reasons women get sidetracked on the way to the C-suite. And that's, they fail to have a written strategy. What is the strategy that is outlined, right? They fail to do that SWOT analysis. And you got to do this over and over, not just one time and leave it, because your SWOT analysis, when you're 2 years in your career, is definitely different than when you're 7 years in that career or 5 years, right? So you want to always know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your opportunities are, right? And what your threats are. Meaning, if you have gaps, it's okay to have a gap. Just know you got it. And then what's a strategy to fill it? What's a strategy for what positions and who do you need to meet and where do you need to go and what place do you need to be in? What is a strategy that gets you ahead in your career? And that dovetails into number 6 that we're halfway through. That dovetails into number 6, lack of a solid plan of how you're going to accomplish getting to the C-suite, right? How are you going to get there? Certainly, yes, you're going to use what you got in that SWOT, but how do you get there? Here's the thing that we know for sure. When you write a plan down, whether you make goals or intentions, I pretty much do intentions now. They're a lot gentler than goals are, but whether you do intentions or goals, having them written down really upwards of 70, 80, 90% the fact that you're going to achieve them. But having it written down also means that if you start to veer off to the road or something happens that's unplanned, you have it written down and you've also made, if this goes wrong, then I need to do that. And if this goes over here, I need to do that. So you already have that what if situation in the plan. So when these things happen, you're not just taken totally over by storm. I mean, you could be doing a great job, you have your sponsorship, and everything is going well. And then the company is bought out and they remove all of the administrative staff and they install their dude. You certainly don't have any control over that, right? But it should be in your plan. If I'm here and this happens, what do I do? Do I go or do I stay? Who is my network? How quickly, if I need to get out, how quickly can I get out? Those are all things that you can have when you have a written plan so that you can be proactive rather than just reactive, right? All right, so number 7, and I'm peeping back over here every so often to be sure I'm not missing a comment. Okay. All right. So number 7, I mentioned before, is mentorship. So mentorship is different from sponsorship. A mentor is someone with knowledge who can share with you and help you do your job better. Can help you, here's some loopholes. When I was in that position, I did this, didn't work. This works better, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And here's what we know for sure is that women are over mentored and under sponsored because a mentor for women is oftentimes someone who is less senior, so they lack that political clout or that personal clout in that organization to advocate on your behalf. And really, that's not their goal. But most of the times, what you'll see is people will throw these mentor programs up like, yep, checking the button, we got mentorship, but the mentorship doesn't advocate for you with the other senior folks in that organization. Okay. And here's the thing, your mentor can be inside of your organization or your mentor can be outside of your organization. You can have two, right? I've had 2 mentors at one time. The thing is be sure that you do get a mentor as early on in your career as possible and keep one, but don't mistake mentorship for sponsorship. Now, mentorship can morph into sponsorship as your mentor grows up in the organization and gets that political clout. Yeah, that sometimes your mentor will then become your sponsor. But up to that point, a sponsor is really someone with a lot of knowledge and experience that can keep you from going in the wrong direction, right? And number 8, yes, number 8, the thing that derails a lot of women on the way to the C-suite is a shift from line jobs or mission essential jobs with the money and with a large budget and people. Women shift from line jobs to staff jobs. And here's the thing. The path to C-suite is paved with those mission essential, mission critical jobs. It is paved with the line jobs, the operational stuff. So a lot of women are shifting away from the line jobs to those support jobs. You're knocking yourself out of the line for C-suite. Not that you can't get promoted from a support position, it is that you're more likely to make the C-suite staff when you have those line jobs because you are managing budgets, you're getting in front of people people who matter. You're getting in front of the folks who are running things. They're seeing you. They're looking at you briefing. They're looking at you manage your money and your people, and you get more face time versus those support roles or those staff jobs. Okay, so I'm curious after the these 8 reasons, you know, would you add anything else to the list? Because I know there are folks out there with experience. What would you add to the list? Right. So drop it in the comments again. I always circle back to read the comments. And here's the thing. I do appreciate you for being here this week, but I'm about to plug next week too. Woohoo! No, you don't want to miss next week's live, next Wednesday, because I'll be sharing with you why grow where you are planted is more detrimental to women than men. That's next week's topic. That's right. You've been there. How many people have been told you need to grow where you're planted? Yeah, well, that can be more detrimental to a woman's career than it can a man's career. We're going to talk about that next week. Okay, so be sure that you join me right here, as they say, same bat time and same bat place. All right, so appreciate you for hanging in there to the end and take care. Bye bye.